Good morning and welcome back to Prepping in Progress. I'm Steve and this is your Wednesday morning prep talk. Today we're going to be talking about comms, mostly because over the weekend 3 different people came to me asking questions about various radios and radio capabilities. So, without further ado, I'm going to try to do a quick overview of my setup and what can be done and what should not be done. So let's get started. Okay, so for beginner preppers or preparedness people, you may not have your ham radio license. You're going to hear every prepper in the community, or quite a few. You need to get your ham license. You need to get your ham license. I highly suggest getting a ham license and getting into ham radio. I am an extra class license holder. I enjoy ham radio, but we're going to start small. Some of the first radios you can start with just for your family or your team are Motorola Talkabouts. I just blanked on what FRS stands for. But the FRS, GMRS frequencies are channels that you do not have to have a license for. You can go to Walmart, Radio Shack, I think they're all closed, and buy those in a 2-pack and use them. The other thing that people tend to overlook is CB. Citizens Band Radio has been around for a long time. It's a good tool. Now, here's the downfall of these two systems. Anyone can listen. Anyone can hear you. Even with your Motorola Talkabouts, when you enter in the privacy code on your frequency, there are only so many privacy codes, and someone like me can just go through, program each one into his radio, and I can hear you. Okay? So you are not super secret, ultra secure. On the plus side, you can hear anyone else around you doing the same thing or talking on a convoy. You can get information this way, and if you choose to talk to them, you can. I like CB. My wife is not ham licensed, so we carry CBs in our vehicles as well as my ham gear. She and I will convoy and we'll talk on the CB while I've got the ham going, listening for anything further out. So there's that. What I have behind me now with CB, most of your normal trucker CBs only have 40 channels. They're a straight center of the dial. This one here has the ability to do sidebanding, and with some bounce off the stratosphere or the ionosphere I've heard and been able to talk to people in North Carolina. I'm in western Arkansas. It is rare. CB can sometimes go 15 to 50 miles depending on the weather, your line of sight, and if you're running an illegal amplifier. A couple other things about CB right quick. There is no license, and line of sight. These radios here are line of sight radios. It means that if there is a tall building between us or a line of mountains, a ridge line of mountains, I won't hear you on the other side. Now, if you climb up to the top of that ridge and I'm down here and we have a free and clear line, I should be able to hear you. So, line of sight is very important. Your Motorola Talkabouts are line of sight. They say you can get 15 miles out of those. Yes, on a clear day when you are at the same altitude, right across from each other with nothing in between you, absolutely. But the moment you start climbing a mountain and going down the mountain, you're going to start having problems. So I highly recommend getting your entry-level ham license. It's called a technician. This is a Baofeng handheld radio. I do like these. They're relatively inexpensive, anywhere from $35 to $70, depending on the make and model you want. The good thing about the Baofeng is it is cheap enough that if you drop it, you break it, you'll be okay. There has been a flap over some FCC guidelines with these radios recently. I believe I have a playlist called Prepper and Ham, and another one called Arkansas Preparedness Network. Gordon, I believe it may be Gordy, goes into the FCC thing with the newer radios quite a bit of detail, and he explains it well, and you should check out that video. But these radios, you can listen, but you cannot transmit, okay? Unless you have a ham license. Now, there is one FCC rule that supersedes this. If you are in a life and death emergency, you may use any frequency available that is most likely to bring help. Okay, and that is the one caveat for a non-ham licensed person to get on the ham bands. These can be programmed with ham frequencies. Many of these radios do have the frequency range built into the radio that you can program in the Motorola Talkabout frequencies. You have to do this manually or via computer, but it can be done, and you can listen in. Those Motorola Talkabout frequencies, the FRS, GMRS frequencies I'm talking about, do not transmit on unless life and death emergency, because this is putting out more power than is allowed on those frequencies. Okay? I cannot in any way, shape, or form agree with breaking that FCC regulation. Okay. Another cool thing with this radio, a lot of it is modifiable. The antenna can be removed. This is a Nagoya. It is a aftermarket antenna. Now, if I take this little piece that I keep right over here, and there goes my other one, and screw it in here, while I am traveling, or even if I'm sitting here, and for whatever reason I don't want to use my portable or my mobile rig, I plug this in, I run my coax here, and my home antenna is now hooked up to this radio. So, the Baofeng is usually the prepper's general go-to handheld radio. Wonderful toy. We also have up here mobile ham radios. Now this is a 2-meter band. Ham radio is broken into bands, and when you're a tech, you're allowed 2 meter and 70 cm, 70 centimeters. It's based on the wavelength of the band, of the signal you're sending out. Anyway, as you go up to your general class and your extra class, you get more and more available frequencies to play on until you're bouncing things around the world. Now, these two base CBs and this mobile rig are pretty much for local, within the state communications. There are things called repeaters where imagine you're using a walkie-talkie and your brother's in the next room or a room across the house, and you can't hear him, he can't hear you. But your friend is sitting there in the middle of the house with 2 walkie-talkies. Well, when you talk, your friend hears it on this one. And your friend picks up his other walkie-talkie and he talks into it, and your brother hears him. That's kind of how a repeater system works. So let's say I can get 50 miles out of this radio, and a station on the other side of a repeater tower is 50 miles away from that tower. So we're 100 miles apart with one tower in between us. I send it to the tower, The tower kicks it out here, and he and I are having a 100-mile conversation on this little rig. Now, depending on power and if the repeater towers are up, that advantage can disappear in an emergency or a natural disaster, power outage, whatever your flavor of the week disaster may be. That is why we also have this little gem over here. This is a Yaesu FT897D. It's an older radio. On this radio, I practice using HF, high frequency radio waves. Now, these do not go necessarily in a straight line from point to point like our other radios. They are not what we call line of sight earlier. These bounce up into the atmosphere, hit the atmosphere, and bounce down at an angle. And it changes based on the waves that the sun is putting out and the ionosphere of our planet. I have talked to Russia. I have talked to Italy. I have talked all over the world. With this radio, I've talked to Australia. I managed to hear the Antarctic Research Station. I have not, unfortunately, been able to make contact, but I can hear them, which is always fun. So that's a basic comm setup. I suggest you and your family get comfortable with what you want. I at least get a tech license. Personally, go the extra mile. Go ahead, get your extra class. The more you learn about ham and radio comms, the better informed you can be. And with that note, there are free apps on your smartphone. There's QRZ.com. Create a free account. They've got all of the test questions for each class. Learn the test answers. I know most hams are going to crucify me, but guys, if you learn the test answers, then you get your hands on a radio. You learn quite a bit. I learned more by getting my hands dirty than I did reading the book, answering the questions in the book, and going from there. So get your hands dirty with a radio and get a license. Now, get a license. Why? Steve, when it all goes down and the world is burning, no one's going to care if I have a license. You're right. But no one's also going to talk to you either, because you're not a known voice on the radio waves that we've been talking to for the last 2 years. We're going to think you may be someone from out of state, out of town, who's here to cause trouble. And we're going to keep our mouths shut. So, my 2 cents on comms: get a license, go play on HF, go play on VHF and UHF, the portable and mobile rigs. Get to know your local hammies, and just have fun. There's a lot more that we can get into, but I'd like to keep this short since this is your Wednesday morning prep talk and not the actual full-length video for the week. I want to say thank you to Bear over at Bear Independent for sharing one of our videos and sending some of his people over. Travis, Set Apart Homestead, thank you. NWA Prepper, you might as well just come over and work for us and join the Prepping in Progress team. You're a good friend, an uplifting soul, and we appreciate you. Love you guys, and until our next video, I'm Steve, and this has been Prepping in Progress.